Warning, use of this product may alter your perception of reality. Everything looks the same.
Guys, can somebody hit me with some juice? And listen, pulp, no pulp, doesn't make a difference to me. You're the ones dealing with the diaper.
Mom goggles.
Have fun glamping.
What is that?
Have no idea. We got this.
Yep. I mean, think about this. The kids are older. Now they practically take care of themselves.
Nobody understands me.
We're doomed.
What did we do the last time they left us alone with the kids?
Mom goggles! Those things were so great. I mean, they helped us see things like moms see things. Whatever happened to them?
I definitely put them in a place I knew I would never forget.
Great. Where are they?
I forgot.
Computer phone. Order 2 pair of mom goggles.
Ordering 2 pairs of mom joggers.
Nope. No. Goggles. Mom goggles. You'll always be my baby.
You're so weird.
No, no, no.
Just leave me alone! I hate you!
You come back here and say that to my face, young lady.
I'm so confused on how I'm feeling. I don't even know why I'm angry, but it feels good to yell.
What you're feeling is natural. You truly are a gift from God, and I hope you know I'm always here for you.
You're the best dad in the world. I'm sorry I don't tell you that more often.
I am gonna cry like a man-child at your wedding.
Stop looking at me!
Laundry.
Look at this mess. It is literally a pigsty in here, mister. How are you gonna organize your life if you can't organize your sock drawer? First, it's unmatched socks. Then, unfinished homework. Then, kicked out of school. Next, jail. How does she process this every day?
All right, one more time. Plastic bowls up top, face down, forks up, knives down, plates in the center, pots and pans we wash by hand. Now repeat it back to me.
No, I don't think the joggers make you look fat.
I've got my dad's thighs.
Don't you need the goggles?
No. I've seen your mom do this so many times. You have a great mom, you know that.
That's great. Can you hand me the barf bucket?
Nope, okay, here we go.
I got your cat out of the dryer. You're welcome.
I don't own a cat.
How do they do it?
Cats?
Moms. How do they do all of this without the goggles?
They don't need them. Moms have this God-given ability.
Yeah, it's like no matter what the circumstance, they always see the best version of what their kids can be.
Moms are a little glimpse of heaven.
It wasn't me!
Is that so hard?
Hey, good morning. It's our day, girls. It's our day. It doesn't matter if you're one of the single ladies, all the single ladies, single moms, married moms. How about you bonus moms? Some people call you stepmoms. Yeah? How about the Mr. Moms in the crowd? We're going to recognize Mr. Moms today, too. Well, today is our day, and I'm so glad that I get to be up here in hot pink to talk to you all today. You know, in the Bible, it says that her children lift her up or rise up and bless her. Her husbands also praise her. Whew, I love that. And God says that we are altogether beautiful. We are flawless. We are his masterpiece. That's something to celebrate, don't you think? Anybody have mothers? We're going to celebrate anyone who has mothers. So we've got it all covered today. So today it's all about the numbers. So I'm a numbers girl. I especially like numbers that have dollar signs in front of them. Anybody else? But today we're going to talk about number 5 and number 110. So it just so happens that the 10 commandments, the 5th commandment says, honor your fathers and mothers. Yes, so we're going to do that today. And today, in the spirit of 10, is the 110th anniversary of Mother's Day. So 110 years ago today, Ann Jarvis lost her mother and was having a memorial service for her mother on this day. And in tribute to her mother, she handed out carnations, which was her mother's favorite flower, and it just took off. People were like, this is cool. They do need to be recognized. And a few years later, President Woodrow Wilson declared the second Sunday of every May as Mother's Day, and here we are. So there's a little history lesson for you. So today, in the spirit of 5, I want to talk to you about 5 categories of motherhood. Now, I'll talk to you about a few subcategories under each category, but I promise I'll get you all out by midnight tonight. So the first category is having a mother. Now, don't confuse that with, I'm just like my mother. I've turned into my mother. How many people, when my father is mad at me, he'll tell me, you're just like your mother. It's never like on a positive note. I found that very interesting. So I hope that everyone had a wonderful mother like I did. I know that she was custom built for me. She still to this day demonstrates the most incredible unconditional love that I could never live up to. But it's nice to aspire to be like she is. But I know that not everyone had the kind of mother like that. And that's okay. Today's going to be an encouraging day for you as well. Because in Psalms it says that you formed my inward parts, you knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. The beauty of it is God picked her, whether you picked her or not. So are you going to try to judge God on a decision that he made? If you're going to, let me please stand very far from you when you're doing that. So in Timothy, that was really a letter from Paul, and he was writing to Timothy, acknowledging Timothy's awesome faith came from his grandmother and mother. So right there, even Paul recognizes the value and what you can see in children who have been brought up under faith-filled parents or mothers. So Be encouraged if you fall into the category where you're like, yeah, my mom was not like that. And if you start giving me the buts, but my mom wasn't like that, or but that's good about your mom, you need to be encouraged that God didn't make a mistake when he chose her to be your mom, because you are still fearfully and wonderfully made. So be encouraged. So the great American pastime is making fun of moms, right? That's what we do. And some of the goofy things that they say and that are ingrained in our minds and souls forever. So I just picked a few momisms that either I've said, but mostly that my mother said. I won't read all 20, I'll skip around, but the first one is always what moms say from the minute we are like 2 seconds old, when they say, what do you say? Thank you. What do you say? Please. What do you say? Right? What do you say? What do you say? Or, don't make me come over there. Do not make me come over there. Or, here's one, wipe that smirk off your face, or I'll wipe it off for you. That's right. Because I said so, that's why. Put your coat on or you'll catch pneumonia. Really? Really? I think that's pretty proven that we won't, or don't go out in wet hair or you'll get pneumonia. Kill them with kindness, my mom would always say, because I said so. So I grew up in a family of 4 and we didn't have a lot of money, but I had this friend who was an only child. And I don't know that they had a lot of money, but it sure seemed like it when we were growing up. She had everything, and everything in the house belonged to her, and she didn't have to share with a bunch of brat sisters and brothers like I did. So I would always come on, well, Sherry this, well, Sherry that. And my mom would say, well, listen, if you think it's so much better over there, you just go live with them. Anybody ever get that from your parents or give that? How about if they jumped off a bridge, would you? Yep, so we've all used them. So here's a momism from a mom who's had just about enough. And I got this off of Facebook this week, and I hee-haw laughed. It said, I don't know karate, but I know crazy, and I know how to use it. Yeah, how many times have we either said or thought, I'm going to lose my mind today? There it is. I know karate. I don't know karate, but I know how to use it. And then the best momisms are, I will always love you no matter what, right? We've all said it, and hopefully we've all heard it. And no one will ever love you like I do, like your mother does. And then my favorite secret one is, you'll always be my favorite. My mom won't admit to that because there's probably siblings in the room, but that's my favorite. Okay, the second is being a mom. Being a mom, it ain't easy. It sounds so good and so easy, and whatever stage you're in, whatever kind of mom you are, or you had, it's funny how we are all so misinformed about how it's going to get easier after, right? After the bottles and the diapers, it's going to get easier, right? After the terrible twos and the tantrums, it's going to get easier. After preschool, after elementary school, after the science project, after the hormones, after the sassy teenagers, it's going to get easier. After the dances, after the last minute, I forgot, I'm supposed to bring refreshments to school tomorrow and it's 9:30, right? Anyone? It doesn't ever get easier. When you meet the teenagers and you're like, are you Jekyll or are you Hyde today? You need to tell me who I'm dealing with here, because of all the hormones that they're going through. And then even when they get finished with school and they get married, you go through the engagement and the wedding ceremony and the babies, and there's always motherhood. It's never over. It's never done. So for all of you who are just hearing this for the first time, there's not a finish line until you're on the other side of earth. That's when it's over. I think that there needs to be some kind of a preacher in the delivery room that we have, it's more than a covenant when you get married. You talk about death do us part. That's the agreement we need to have in the delivery room, because that's when it ends. So it's never over. The Proverbs said, start your children off the way they should go, and even when they are old, they will not turn from it. All the time, we're going to talk a little bit more and more about that, about being a mom and the huge role that we have as mothers. And Mr. Moms, there are some dads that are serving as a mom and dad. And it reminds me of the story of a man who's walking along the beach. He's a single dad playing mom. and Dad, and he's praying, and God is just so taken with him and how faithful he is. And he said, "You've been such a faithful servant. I want to do something extra special for you. What could I do for you?" And the man said, "I've always wanted to go to Hawaii, but I'm afraid to fly." He said, "Build me a bridge." And God said, son, do you know the engineering that would go into that? Do you know the manpower that? He goes, "Why don't you pick something else?" And the guy said, "Okay, well, I've been married twice, and both of my wives said I was very insensitive. So can you just please tell me how a woman thinks?" He goes, "Do you want that bridge to be 2-lane or 4-lane?" So it's hard to figure out how we think and then pile that on top of trying to figure out what our kids think. We moms need goggles ourselves sometimes, right? That was so darling, though, and that is so true that we know when we hear something that they're saying this, but they really mean that. I used to say I have to squeeze the ugly out of my kids. Sometimes they would come home or they would get sassy, and I would squeeze until they would laugh. They didn't think it was funny at first. But we have to remember that I spanked my kids. Feel free to send all the emails and texts you want. I think it made them better. I did not beat them. I did not leave my handprint, but I left an imprint on them. That this is the way it's going to go. You're going to grow up in my house in a godly world or an ungodly world in a godly house. Here's the way it's going to have to go. So we have to remember that. And I also thinks that the size of the litter matters. Isn't it so funny? On first children, wow, everything's perfect, right? Not everyone can hold them because, it's not safe, and only you know how to prepare their food. But I love bath time routine. Here is just an example. First child, we bathe them, we massage them at bedtime, we tell them stories, sing songs, prayers, and then we tuck in the blankets. Once we have a couple kids and more, it's like, hey, whoever goes to sleep first, $100, right? The rules constantly change. And then we have the worrying mothers, right? I stole this from social media because I think it's so hilarious and so true. When our kids do not answer our texts, moms instantly go to that. They're on the side of the road, they're in a wreck, they're drowned, someone's kidnapped them, they're in someone's trunk, right? That is not what happens, but that's where our minds instantly go. And my husband had to train me up and saying, that is a devil trying to take you down. Stop going down the negative route. And so every time I get worried now, I just say a prayer. Because right here in Philippians, it says, don't be anxious for anything, but in everything, with prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your request to God. So I have to say is, thank you, Lord, for the kids. I'm a little anxious right now. Can you take this anxiety? Send some angels around them. You could say a prayer. It'll relieve you, and it's an extra prayer for them because there's nothing like a praying mom to make things different. And if you're going to worry about something, here is the one thing you want to worry about. What are your kids seeing, hearing, watching you do? It doesn't matter if you're a Mr. Mom, a single mom, a married mom, a grandmother, a Mimi, a mama, whatever you are, the kids are always watching us. I won't read this. You can get this on the internet when you thought I wasn't looking. It's a great poem. But this is where they get permission to behave the way they behave. Just like at school, teachers say, man, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Right? They can tell exactly how their home life is based on how they behave at school. So they're watching us. So I want to talk to you about tough love. And for all you young moms or new moms, I want you to know that tough love is real. And I think it was, if you look up tough love, I think it just has a mom's picture in the dictionary. Because I feel like it's us that are constantly having to show our children what tough love is. And I hated it, but I was by far the disciplinarian in my family with my children. And it stunk. I didn't always like being the bad guy, but I was married to Mr. Fun. So, he didn't want to be the bad guy. So I got to be the bad guy. And so while I hated it, my kids hated me. It was real fun. But it was the right thing to do. It was a short-term investment in a very, very long-term payoff. And I will tell you that our children are experts experts. They're like born with a doctorate degree in how to make mama feel guilty, right? And all that they're trying to do is they're trying to guilt you into unwinding the consequences that they created. So just all I need to say to all the moms and Mr. Moms is suck it up, Buttercup, because it'll pay off in the long run, I promise you. And I always talk about circles with my kids. You know, you can tell the minute you're demonstrating tough love, they start drawing the circle, you know, trying to shut you out. And I tell my kids, you can draw the biggest circle you want, but I'll draw a bigger one and shut you in. Because that's what we do. We have to be tough when it calls for being tough. There's going to be a time where they don't have you to direct them or redirect them. And now's the time that they need you. Shonda Rhimes, I don't know if you know her, she's the producer and she's the writer of Grey's Anatomy, if any of you are hooked on that show like one of my children are. But she said you can waste your life drawing lines or you can live your life crossing them. So I love talking about circles and lines and all that. A lot of people, and especially kids, can relate to that. But just don't be shaken by the guilt and don't give up because it's tough. That's part of parenting. And so in Isaiah it says, for though the mountains be shaken and the hills be removed, yet my unfailing love for you will not be shaken. There's your role model. Don't be shaken. It's called tough love because it's tough. So keep it going. So there are a lot of extraordinary women in the Bible. So I highly encourage you to sneak a peek at some if you're going through any of the things that maybe some of these women were going through. I'm going to give you 5, but before that, I'm really going to give you 5.2 because I don't know the names of the first 2. So there were 2 women, and this was in 1 Kings, who had babies around the same time. And one of the babies passed, and the other one didn't. Well, the mother of the baby, the mother who lost the child, stole the other woman's child and tried to make off like it was hers. Well, so the real mother tried to get it back and she wouldn't. So they went before the king. They went before Solomon and said, this is my baby. Hers passed and she stole mine. And she's like, no, this is mine. They kept fighting back and forth. And finally, King Solomon said, give me a sword. Give me a sword. I'm going to cut the baby in half and each of you get a half. And the woman whose baby it was not said, fine. That's fine. That's fair. But the real mother said, no, you take him. You take him. And King Solomon said, that's the mother. Give her the baby. So the sacrifices are pretty endless through motherhood. And a lot of times we don't even see the sacrifices that were made until we're grown, sadly enough. And a lot of times not until we're mothers ourselves or we're parenting with someone. Then it's some aha moment. So Hannah in the Bible, Hannah was barren. She was infertile. She couldn't have a baby. But she was married to a man who adored her. And those were the days where men were a sucker for punishment. And they had lots of wives. And so his other wife, Myrtle, or fertile Myrtle, she kept having all these babies while Hannah couldn't have any. And so Hannah prayed to God and said, if you will give me a son, I will dedicate that child to you. And so God came through, answered her prayer eventually. So she suffered infertility, which we're going to talk about, is a real deal, is a real suffering that women go through, and dads and families. But in that, she ended up having a baby, Samuel. She fulfilled her promise, and Samuel ended up becoming a prophet, a priest, a military leader. He ended up with God selecting 2 kings, the first 2 kings, one of which was David. So he grew up to be pretty important in our history. And then we have Jochebed, which a lot of people don't know her by name, but that was Moses' mom. And in those days, you remember when Joseph came to Egypt and he brought all those people and they just multiplied. And after all of he and his family died off, they forgot how awesome he was in the family. And then they were threatened by all these Jewish people. So the Pharaoh sent out an edict, kill all baby boys 2 years and younger, because he was going to stop the reproduction, leave the girls, if the moms have girls, they can live. Well, Jochebed had Moses. And so she protected him for 3 months until, can you imagine keeping a screaming baby quiet so no one would know there's a baby in that house and that it was a boy? And finally she made a basket and put tar on it so it could float and sent it down the Nile, the alligator infested Nile where all the babies were being thrown into. And it wouldn't, you know it, God made it so that Pharaoh's daughter was taking a bath in the Nile, and that basket just floated right up to her, and she took one look at Moses and fell in love and said, I want to keep him. I want to keep him, but I can't nurse him. Well, when Jochebed put him in the water, she sent her daughter to follow him along the river shore to see what ended up happening. And she happened to be right there when Pharaoh's daughter pulled him out of the water. And she said, I know someone who can help you feed him. So then the mother ended up being his nursemaid and raising him, and she was paid for it. Boy, God works in mysterious ways, right? So when we trust in God and we give it up to God, it's a whole different result. Naomi was a mother-in-law in Ruth. She was Ruth's mother-in-law. And she was so strong in her faith that Ruth would not leave her. And that's where we find in the Bible where it says, where you go, I'll go. I actually have that engraved in my husband's wedding band, where you go, I'll go, from Ruth, and our anniversary date. So he doesn't forget about that. And then Sarah, remember, was Abraham's wife who didn't have a baby until she was in her 90s. So she was barren. She waited and ended up being the mother of Isaac. And we'll talk about the promise later. And then Mary, the ultimate mother of God. So there are a lot of mothers. God uses moms. He uses moms. On his own timeline, he uses moms. That's why praying is so important. Not sure why my slide, there we go. The power of a praying mom. I don't know if any of you have ever read anything from Stormy Omarjan. She writes anything that starts with the power of the praying. She's the author, more than likely. It's praying wife, praying husband, praying mother. This is a great prayer book over your children. You can see mine's pretty abused. And there's praying over adult children too, but I still use baby prayers over my adult children because they just sound better coming off my mouth. But Ryan, last night, Pastor Ryan preached in Alton, and I was listening to him online, and he said something. He said, prayers go where moms cannot. And I love that. And I text him, I'm like, oh, great quote. I'm so using that tomorrow. He goes, it was a total God thing while I was up there on the stage. So obviously someone needs to hear that in our church today. God uses moms and God responds to prayers. Never stop praying. I always say, whether you see anything happening or not, I promise you things are happening when you pray. Good enough? So even Abraham Lincoln, our 16th president, said, I remember my mother's prayers, and they have followed me, they have clung to me all my life. All that I am and hope to be, I owe to my angel mother. There's nothing like a man paying respect to his mother. There's a tip for some of you today. You want to be a super son. Becoming a mother. Becoming a mother is really what I want to talk about. Women who don't have children yet. They've never had or held their babies. And when I say never held, that might sound a little odd to some of you, but that's for people who have lost children in miscarriages, or they've given their baby up for adoption and didn't hold it after they had it. So there are a lot of different moms out there. And just as in the Bible, it talked about so many barren women who had difficulty having babies, getting pregnant. I have so many friends that have been in infertility testing and therapy and treatment that have all come through on the other side. But I know that's not with a child. But I know that's not necessarily God's plan for everyone. And I also recognize that there are some women out there that have no desire, no way, no how to have a baby. And that's super cool too. There's nowhere in the Bible that says you have to have a baby. So be encouraged today if that's the decision that you've made on your life. But for women who are suffering with infertility, it is literally a roller coaster ride every single month when they start their period. Can I say that in front with the microphone? It's a natural thing. I did. It's over. So it is, because every month they want to be pregnant, but as you know, when you start your period, that means you're not pregnant. So just little birds and bees up here. So I know that I interviewed a lot of women for today about infertility, and the one thing that they said was they feel alone, even though they know they're not. They struggle to celebrate with others because it's almost like when you buy a red truck, like Pastor Darren said last week, then all of a sudden all these red trucks go by. The minute you can't get pregnant, everyone else can. They don't even have to try. Or you'll see kids galore. You can't get away from kids and pregnant moms and pregnant commercials. It's just incessantly in front of them. And so they feel very resentful and they have a hard time celebrating. I'm going to give you some tips. In the event that you have a friend who's going through infertility, if you have some big celebration that you're about to have or unveiling that you're pregnant, somebody else is pregnant, they want to celebrate with you. Give them a heads up. Don't bring them to the party and then do it. They can't on demand cover up the feelings that just pours out of their emotions. And oftentimes, for women who are struggling with infertility, they're in some kind of treatment for that, meaning there's some medication to make them more fertile, so that just plays with their hormones and their emotions as well. So we have to be sensitive. We also have to be sensitive to asking. You know how we're just trying to make conversation, say, so when are you guys going to have kids? If that can't stop coming out your mouth, when they answer you, just stop. Don't keep poking at them. Oh, really? Why is it or don't ask that. That's almost, if they don't have children, they'll let you know when they're going to, okay? So it's probably really best if you can avoid asking them about that. Or if you can't, be prepared if they answer something about having difficulty, because that's another thing that they said. It's like, I'll have a conversation about it, but then no one knows what to say to me after they ask me, when are you gonna have kids? So we just need to be very sensitive. Also, one of my friends who went through 9 years of trying to have a baby, and finally she did. And she said, now I get it, and now I understand my whole life. It makes me more appreciative and so forth. But because it took them so long to get pregnant, she was older when she ended up having a baby, around 40. And she had one person say, dear Lord, I would kill myself if I had a baby at 40. Well, that seems pretty benign, but she actually had a brother kill himself. So it was like, we just have to be so careful with our words and be sensitive to that everyone doesn't have the cookie cutter of, I got pregnant, now I had a baby, everything was fine. There's so much suffering that comes with that. I love it too, when they said, don't avoid asking me about it when you're in the circle. Don't think that you're going to remind me by asking, hey, how are things going? How's the testing? Any luck? What's going on? She said, you won't remind us of it. We never forget it. So it's all right. It shows that you care by asking me about it. In Luke, which I don't have the address here, but in Luke, you guys will remember the story that Jesus was talking to a lot of people at a house, and it was so crowded that these friends brought their paralyzed friend to try to be cured by Jesus. And they couldn't make it through the crowd, so they crawled up on the roof and they lowered him down on his mat. And you know what Jesus said? He said, because of their faith, you're healed. Not your faith. Their faith. So for those of you who are isolating yourself and thinking that you have no one else, you want their faith. You want your friends beside you praying for you. Don't shut everyone out. Use the circle with your friends. Draw a bigger circle and shut them in. I don't know if any of you have heard the song, and I already forgot the singer, but the name of the song is Hills and Valleys. And in the chorus, I just want to read this because it's so encouraging. It says, on the mountains, because our life, peak and valleys, motherhood, peaks and valleys. It says, on the mountains, I will bow my life to the one who set me there. In the valley, I will lift my eyes to the one who sees me there. When I'm standing on the mountain, I didn't get there on my own. When I'm walking through the valley, I know for certain I am not alone. So we just have to remember wherever we are in our journey in this subject matter, that he never leaves us. He is always, always there. So as we talk about celebrating moms, I want to talk about moms who aren't with us anymore. or children who aren't with us anymore. Because this is another day that's hard for people who have lost a child or a mom, right? I have a best friend who recently lost her mom, and she said that I will be perfectly fine, just carrying on, and then bam, I'm a total wreck. It could be a color, a smell, it could be nothing. It's just the emotion of her being gone pops back into my mind. And it's crazy. It just paralyzes me. And I went to the funeral of another friend who lost her mom, and all 5 adult children got up and spoke. And the brother, the oldest, just said one thing. It's the only thing I remember from that funeral, is he quoted Dr. Seuss. He said, "Don't cry before it's over. Smile because she happened." And so a lot of times that's what we have to do when we're trying to look for a peace around a big loss that we've encountered, right? There's nothing worse than the loss of a child or a mom. But if we seek God's peace, that's the only way we're going to get through it sometimes. I mean, I've had so many people say, I just want to die. I just want to die. But we have to look for God's peace. And in Philippians it says, "In the peace of God, which transcends all understanding." When we trust in him, we won't even be able to understand, how did I overcome that? God's peace. And in John, Jesus said, "Peace I leave you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives." No one on earth can give you the kind of peace. "Don't let your hearts be troubled, and don't be afraid." So today is a big opportunity for us to celebrate in a very happy, peaceful way for those that we've lost. And then the 5th is God's purpose for moms. A lot of times we get crazy about our kids, and they almost become our idol, right? They just consume our life and everything that we do, and we think, well, God gave me a child, so this must be what I'm put on earth for. It is not. Now, they're put on earth, and you're supposed to guide them and lead them, but your highest calling above motherhood is still following Jesus and being transformed into the image of God. That's how you will model the way. That's how you'll be the mother of the year. That's how you'll be the Mimi of the year, the grandmother of the year. You know, some people we call moms our aunts of the year. So this is how we have to look at what our purpose is as mothers. And then if you think, I got nothing. I love it when people say, well, you know, there's no training manuals on motherhood. I'm like, you not been to a bookstore lately? Because actually there's about 65 rows of how to be a good mom. Moms for Dummies. I said, and there's the Bible that has a ton of stories about how to be a great mom. But there is one that I love from Galatians 22:23, where it talks about the fruit of the Spirit. That if you know Jesus, you have all of these things in you. In abundance, running over. There is no limit and no law. And here's how you remember them. I've actually memorized them because this is my simple way of thinking. There are 9. There are 3 sets of 3, so there are 9. The first 3, 1 syllable. The second 3 are 2 syllables. The third 3 are 3 syllables. So love, joy, peace. Who doesn't want that? Right? Patience, kindness. Some people are like, I just don't have patience. I'm like, really? I thought you said you knew Jesus. I do know Jesus. I'm like, you have all the patience you could ever even use, and then some. You could loan it out. Faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Anybody have any issues with that? Thinking they didn't have any self-control? You got it. All that you will ever need. And against such thing, there is no law. There is no law. There is no limitation. You've got all that you need. Whether you're a mom or not, we all, if we know Jesus, this is what we have in us. This is what God gave to us. So I just want to close today with this thought. As I think about Jesus, and he gave dignity and honor to the role of motherhood. When he was hanging on the cross for you and for me, he looked down at his friend John right before he died. And you know what he said? Hey, take care of my mom. Take care of my mom. Right then, right then, that dignified the office of motherhood. 2,000 years ago. So we thought it just started 110 years ago. This day's been being celebrated for 2,000 years because of this awesomeness that Jesus did. So let's follow this example. There's no way to be perfect as a mom. No way. Give it up. It's impossible. There's only one perfect parent, and it's none of us. But there are infinite ways that we can be loving all the time. All right? So why don't we say a prayer? Father, we thank you for all the mothers, past, present, and future. And we thank you, Lord, for honoring and dignifying the office of motherhood. I pray for an abundant blessing over all women. I thank you that you said we are your masterpiece, altogether beautiful, fearfully and wonderfully made. I pray that all of those who are suffering with infertility or loss, who have never had or held their own baby, that you would heal the wounds and prepare the wombs for your glorious miracles ahead. In Jesus' name, amen.